Hello, SICW wrestling fans, and welcome to this week's SICW All-Star Wrestling. We have got a treat for you tonight as promoter Herb Simmons has sat down with one of the biggest stars here in SICW All-Star Wrestling. So without further ado, let's head to this week's SICW Promoters Corner.
Good evening and welcome to this week's edition of the SICW Promoters Corner. I'm promoter Herb Simmons, and it's always a pleasure to have you joining us each and every Sunday evening. Here at the Promoters Corner, we're always trying to bring you some of those great classic matches from the days of wrestling at the Chase, or most recently, some of the Dick the Bruiser library that we've acquired. And it's always our honor and pleasure to do that. And also from time to time, we bring you a special guest, and I'm happy to say tonight, I've got a big special guest with us tonight, none other than the SICW Classic Champion. Some of you call him the Big Texan, some of you call him Big Jim. I call him the Champ. Jim, thanks for being here tonight at the Promoters Corner.
Oh man, it's a pleasure to be here. Anytime I can get a one-on-one time with you, especially at the SICW headquarters, I can't bypass that. I got to show up and talk.
Well, and we want to talk a little bit tonight for you fans who tune in every Sunday evening with us about what it's like to be one, Big Jim, Big Texan, and now most recently back in May you did something that I know you'd been having your eyes set on for a long time, and you became the SICW Classic Champion.
Yeah, what it's like to be me. Man, you just got to be a fan of wrestling. Growing up as a kid, I was a fan. I told many stories about my dad looking like Hulk Hogan when I was a young kid, and his favorite thing to do was to watch wrestling at the Chase. So that's all I known as a little kid, watching wrestling. If it was not wrestling at the Chase, it was the old WWF school wrestling, and just having him look like Hulk Hogan, watching wrestling, it was just destined. It was just going to happen that I was going to go into wrestling.
Well, and I know a lot of the fans are glad that you chose that path, that career, because I've been at many matches that you've been at, not only at SICW, but some of the other organizations that you've traveled around the Midwest and have fought. And when the Big Texan comes out of that locker room, the crowd is electrified, and you bring that energy to them, and I think that's what really makes it special. And then in May, when you finally got in that ring against what is the person who's been billed as probably the most diabolical, devious man in the Midwest or around the country, Attila. Tell the fans what that night was at that capacity crowd over at the Aviator Hotel.
Well, before I do that, I'm going to take you back just a little bit. When I first got into wrestling, belts didn't mean a thing to me. For those who have followed me, I'm 20 years plus in the business, and most of my career I wore a mask. I wore Army fatigues because I was pretty much just a hired gun. So my job was just to get in there, hurt someone who was in the way of someone else. Belts did not matter. However, secretly, deep down inside, you always want to be the champion of the promotion that you work for. And so, I've had my eyes on this prize forever. Of course, I didn't tell anyone because, you want to be that hired gun. You just come in there, you kick some butt, and you walk away. Get that pay, and then you're done. But like I said, secretly, you've always wanted to be the champion. So, I had a 9-month chase, basically, chasing Attila around. It kind of actually started, it was me and Flash Flanagan. Me and him have much respect for both of each other, for both of us. And I thought it was just going to be a one-on-one classic match with Flash Flanagan. Little did I know that was going to be the start of the Attila run, because Attila managed to sneak into our match and cost me that first title chance of winning the classic strap. Then of course we know that Attila eventually took it off of Flash, and then it was 9 months of me trying to get at Attila. different stipulations in our matches, different combinations of Attila and Sheik Prater. So
Can't forget Stephen E.
Stephen E. You know,
The Midwest Investor.
Right. I had all of his henchmen basically going, you know, at me, trying to block me from getting to Attila. But then it all came down to that one special night. I mean, talking about stars aligning. We had a house full of Texans. You know, JBL was there. Stan Hansen, you know, one of my idols growing up, was there. James Beard was the referee. All strong Texans, Texan pride right there. And it was a Texas death match. I mean, so the stars were aligning, and I just knew I had to put everything in there. I had to do everything I could. Speaking of the Texas death match, you know, it didn't matter how many pins Attila had on me, how many pins I had on Attila. It was all about the last pin. So every time, you know, Attila was able to get to 1, 2, 3 on me, I had to find the will to get back up. Because I knew it didn't matter that he pinned me. I had to get back up. I had to get back on top. I had to pin him and then keep him down. And like I said, the stars was just aligned that night. Everyone was in the crowd. It was the fan fest. So it was a packed house. All the legends were there. You know, I couldn't ask for a better night. And it took a couple lariats. And matter of fact, the main lariat, I had to take my cowbell and wrap it around my arm to actually get that last final lariat in. But I tell you, when the ref counted 3, and then we had to wait that 30 seconds just to make sure he stayed down. And I thought, oh, no, because I seen him start to try to get back up. And I was like, oh man, what do I got to do? And then the last second, he just fell again. And then the 30 seconds went up, and I was the new classic champion. I still kind of getting shaky and goosebumps to the right now.
Well, and I can understand that. And you talk about those stars aligning with the JBL and Stan Hansen being there. Gerald Briscoe was there, James Beard. But you can't forget, you know, that stipulation came down to you wanting that Texas death match.
Oh, yeah.
Just the way it used to be back in the days of wrestling at the Chase under Sam Muchnick and Larry Matisek's tutelage. But we can't forget that, you know, we actually did an interview where we had Dory Funk Jr. describe what it was expected out of a Texas death match a week or two before, because his father was the one who actually invented the Texas death match.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that kind of just put the icing on the cake for the fans.
Oh, yes.
And I could tell that when Attila couldn't get back up, I mean, he tried. You can't take anything away from him. You know, he's still out there. And you know, as you hear Stephen E. say all the time when he's doing promos or being interviewed, you know, he isn't giving up. He's coming back. He's going to take over SICW, and the classic title's coming back where it rightly belongs with Devastation Incorporated. That's yet to be seen. But when you talk about your career and you talk about finally reaching to it in May, that was a long time coming. Now, you had that 9-month chase, as you called it, but now the bullseye is on the Big Texan.
Right. I mean, I've already seen it. You know, people have been calling me out. Kowalski called me out. Another hired gun, Big Joe Helms, called me out. So yeah, I was talking to other wrestlers last night, and we were talking about how other promotions have like one big dog in their promotion. SICW, it's where the big boys are. So I have big guys coming after me. You know, Kowalski, 400 some odd pounds. You know, I was able to actually suplex him the other night, but that was after me trying and then finally able to get the big guy up. But that's what I got to look forward to. Is I got the bullseye. We got a locker room full of big, strong guys, and they're going to be coming after me.
Well, and the thing about the championship, especially the classic title, which this belt, and I know you've looked at it a long time, it's got all the greats on it, everybody from the Sam Muchnick to the Larry Matiseks to the Luthezes, the Kaniskis, Bruiser Brody. They're all names that are on these plates on here.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's a very prestigious belt, but not only do you have those big tough guys. You name like Kowalski, Big Joe Helms. You can't leave out the tough guys either, like the Steve Fenders of the world, who is just sitting back in the wings, just waiting.
Oh, I know he is.
Yeah, so or then you flip the coin over. You've got guys that's been doing it a little bit longer than you have, like the Night Train Gary Jackson, who you're friends with. When it comes to this, friendship kind of goes out the window. Is that correct?
That's true. I mean, if Gary ever wanted a shot at this, I would be obliged to give it to him because our friendship goes way back. And I know it'll just be a nice, classic, clean-cut match. I won't have to worry about other people over my shoulder, people coming in and interfering. I think I respect Gary enough, and I know he respects me enough that he would just come at me and we would have a classic match. So even guys like that, the ones that I look up to, all comers, I'll take them on, and I'm going to show you respect that you earned, that you deserved, even though I am the champion and you would be coming after me and being my opponent.
Well, and that's the difference, as I said. You know who those guys that are going to sneak up on you and hit you in the back of the head with a club.
You're right.
And then you got the guys like the Gary Jacksons, or even the younger guys in the business, the up and coming guys like Brandon Beretta or Joey Vanetti and people like that will come to you and say, hey, I'd like to have a shot at this. And you're right, it would be a great classic match. Something that you could go in there and just focus on a good match, right. Not having to look over your shoulder and see what's going on. So, that's the one thing we talk about all the time. The locker room at SICW is full of some of, if not the best talent in the Midwest.
Oh, most of them got over 20 years experience. So you got a lot of legends, local legends in our locker room. Plus, we got those local legends teaching the younger guys. So no matter if they're younger or not, or just a couple years in the business, they're learning the tricks of the trade through the legends. So that speaks a lot of experience. That gives them a lot of push, a lot of drive. Right. So whether they've been in the business 1 year or 20 years, I know you guys are coming after me.
That's the bullseye we're talking about. Well, and that's the thing, and I know, Jim, we've talked about it in the past. You've followed wrestling since you're a young age. I know, like all of us have.
Right.
That's one of the questions that I always get asked. Well, how did you get involved in the wrestling and the promotional end of it? Everybody, if you're watching this program tonight or like you do every week, you've been a fan, and that's why you're watching it. Right. That's why you got into it as a wrestler. What do you think is changed from back in those early days of you watching those wrestling shows of the WWF, or whether it be WCW or whatever it may be, to what we have now? What is the biggest change that you've seen?
I think the internet has a lot to do with it. Because back when you were watching Wrestling at the Chase, you got to watch that program. But that's as much as you got to learn about the boys, about the wrestlers. Now that the internet's here and everyone's got a cell phone, can take videos, it's not like the curtain's been pulled back. And I wish it wasn't that way, because a lot of it has to do with the mystique of that wrestler. And for people to videotape them when they're not looking and, putting some stuff out on the air, I think that just makes it horrible. I think Triple H said it best when he said it, just be a fan and watch the show. Don't worry about who's sneaking out next week. Don't read the magazines on them giving little behind the scenes of what's going to happen here in the future. Just sit back, watch the show, be a fan, and take that hour, 2 hours out of your life and just enjoy it.
Well, and it's kind of like, and I've had questions asked over all these years, it's like watching a movie.
Yeah.
If a new movie comes out at the theater or the whatever, you may watch the trailer of it, or you may do your research on what the contents of that movie is, but you don't see a movie that tells you what the ending is.
Right.
And so, I think sometimes, and I see it more in the younger generation of the workers out there nowadays, they all want to portray that, yeah, we know what it is, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But, you'd be doing yourself a favor by not buying into that. Larry Matisek, I think, said it best also. For 2.5 hours, we're going to take you into that world of disbelief. We want you to forget about everything that's going on in and around your life on a daily basis for that 2.5 hours. Now, the reality is you have to come back to reality. But like you guys did the other night at the Belle Claire Fairgrounds, packed crowd, there wasn't a fan in that building at the fairgrounds that was worried about the price of gas, about what they're doing tomorrow. They were there. They were watching the Big Texan and Kowalski and Big Joe Helms and whether you like them or not, the Stephen E's of the world, Devastation Incorporated. They were entrenched in what was going on for that 2.5 hours, and I think that's the beauty of it.
Oh yeah. So I was able to watch just clips of my match the other night, me and Kowalski, and there's a part when I actually was able to get enough strength to build up and actually suplex Kowalski over, and that's not the great part of the match. The great part is looking at the fans in the crowd when I did that, because they're all like, oh, every single one of them, you can just, it was like a wave, the wave in the sea. All the fans were like, oh my God, you can see the expression on all their faces.
Yeah, well, that's another question. How does it make you feel when you look out at that audience and you see the little girl that comes that wears the cowgirl hat? And then you look over in the next row, and there's an older lady sitting there that comes all the time, her and her sister-in-law, and they are just, they're jumping up and down and clapping and running up to the ring. What does that do to the adrenaline?
It just raises it to the roof. Having fans, again, back in the day, I didn't care. I didn't care if I had fans, good, bad, it doesn't matter. But now to the point where you want those accolades and you want the fans behind you, you want the support, and especially where I'm at now, I can use all the support I can get. Because sometimes in the matches, I'll be listening to the fans, and they'll scream at me, "Turn around," and then I'll know something's coming up. So having the fans back me and give me little tips like that, Stephen E's right there, watch your back. And like the last match against Kowalski, I had the LA Hustlers out there, besides Kowalski. And so everywhere I turned.
Lucky P. Larson.
Yeah, Lucky P. Larson. I think at one point you can see in the match he was choking me. And of course, Kowalski had the ref's attention, so the ref didn't get to see it. I did, because I was the one getting choked.
Let's talk a minute about, we mentioned the fans all the time, and as I've told you and many other people that, a good promotion is like baking a cake, and one of the main ingredients of that is you have to have great fans. And when you look at our great fans, the Peggy Mender and her family that have been following us for over 40 years, the Hendricks family that travels all over the Midwest, but they always come to SICW.
Yes.
Sally and Dolores and Kenny, Tyler Cooley, people in that SICW family, as we call it. They got your back, and as you just said, you're going to need that, because that bullseye is getting bigger each and every time. Because I can tell you, since you won that title, my phone has been burning up from guys hey, when can I get my shot? Yeah, Jim's good, but I'm better.
Right.
We're going to send Texan back to Texas and that type of stuff. So I'm just giving you a fair warning that there's guys out there that want it. And over here, you still got Attila Khan. You still got the Kowalskis. But then, like I said, you got the Jason Breeds of the world, the Gary Jacksons, people like that. And that's my next question. You've been wrestling for a long, long time. What separates our locker room from the other ones that you've been in, and why is SICW known globally?
I think it's because even though we have like the Khans, the Praters, I think our attitude in general is we want to give to the fans. We want to have the best match on the card, and that's everyone on the card. So we don't have big egos in the locker room that's trying to ruin the whole card so they have the best match. Everyone respects each other enough to want to have the best match with their opponent. But you have that on every single match. And I think that's what separates us. We're not ego driven. Of course, you do have to have a little ego to want to get yourself from the bottom of the card to the top. But that's everyone. But being in the different locker rooms, you have those ones that think they deserve everything and they needed it handed to them. So they don't have to scratch and claw and fight to the top. They just feel that it's theirs and they should have it. We're not like that. We're going to make every match on that card the best match, and we're going to try to outdo each other because we want to be the best. I mean, it's just simple as that.
Well, and I couldn't have said it any better that way, and you've heard me say it before. One of the things that if you could teach any of these younger men and women that are looking to become professional wrestling, check the ego at the door.
Definitely.
And keep your ears open, and a lot of times keep your mouth shut. And I was told that many, many years ago by Sam Muchnick, and they didn't come much knowledgeable than a guy like a Sam Muchnick back in the day. And it's worked pretty good all these years, and that's why I give that advice whenever I'm asked for it. I don't openly go out there and tell people that unless they want some advice, but I just think it's important they hear it from the guys who are in that ring that are busting their tails each and every show.
Well, everyone pretty much knows I am a trainer. I help train the next generation. And there's already been a few guys that I had to send packing just because they come in, they think they're all that, and they won't take the time to actually learn the trade. They come in, and just because they can talk to themselves in a mirror, they think they're hot stuff. But then when you ask them to actually just have a nice wrestling match, they can't do it without trying to do some sort of flippy stuff that in the long run will get them hurt. I see that a lot. I said that internet is one thing that hurts the business. The other thing that hurts the business is people thinking that they need to jump off the top rope every move. Or jump from the top rope to the outside, or do it at such a quick pace that injuries are going to start piling up. I mean, I don't like mentioning names, but I know there's one student who's got maybe 3 years in the business, and he believes that he's got to outdo himself every match. And I know for a fact he's been on the shelf 3 times already, because he's hurt himself each time. And some people just need to pull back, and this is a sport. This is wrestling. They're missing the wrestling part of it.
Right. Well, and you bring up a very valid point then, because wrestling has been around forever. And if you go back and do any research at all, the injuries that you're seeing out there today is exactly from what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You didn't see those type of injuries back in the day, because they went out there and they wrestled. They
Right.
didn't need to do all those high spots. Nowadays, guys are trying things for that 5 or 10 second high spot that you see 3, 4, 5, 6 times during the match.
Right.
So, if you see the same thing over and over and over, it doesn't mean anything. So I think that's a good advice. I've been there and watched you do some of that training, and I think that any young person who wants to get into the business needs to take that to heart. Slow down, take your time, tell the story, less injuries, longevity will be on your side.
Right.
And
that's what you need in this sport is longevity. You don't want to get in and then within a year you hurt yourself so bad that now you're out. I mean, all that time you spent training and trying to learn this craft, you just spent it because you got concussed. Your first match do you try to do a triple somersault off the top rope?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's not worth it.
So let's talk a minute about a couple other guys. Somebody that you've had heat with, the Canadian hero. Some people call him that. I call him the Canadian Zero, Sean Vincent. Right now holds the SICW Classic title. Your brother-in-law, which is no secret, Belleville's own Bobby D, has got a war with him.
Right.
Bobby won the Bruiser Brody Cup the same night you become the SICW champion. Of course, that turmoil is still going on where the cup has been stolen by Sean Vincent and this guy that a winner, or whatever he calls himself, Big Nasty Glenn Williams. But tell me about what you think is going to come down between Bobby D and Sean Vincent.
So, me and Bobby's actually sat down and had this conversation before, because it's kind of like the same situation I had with Attila. Attila had henchmen. Sean has got 2 henchmen as well. You got Glenn Williams, and then you got his other big masked guy,
the intern.
Yeah. So if he can get a fair fight with Sean Vincent, I think it's going to be easy for him to win back his Central States title. And the reason I say this is because Sean Vincent, he's pretty arrogant. And when you see people that are arrogant, they make mistakes. And Bobby's been in the business long enough to where he can see that mistake and then use that to his advantage. So I think, and I told Bobby, I said, if you ever need my help, just holler at me. He wants to, he wants to earn the title back by himself. So he's not asked for it yet. But if he does, I will have his back. And I think as long as it's a fair fight, that belt's going to come back to Bobby D.
That's good there. Let's move forward. August the 12th, we come back to the Belle Claire Fairgrounds.
Yes,
I've already signed the match. Those of you who were there this last show saw the LA Hustlers pull up what I call as an upset. We had an issue. WWE legend Tony Atlas had flights, got 3 different flights, was canceled. He could not make it in. Cowboy Bob Orton Jr. and him was going to defend the tag titles. When it got to the point the match was, Tony hadn't been able to get here, so the substitution made. Flash Flanagan came out and basically demanded, "Hey, I want to be Bob Orton's tag partner against the LA Hustlers." Of course, we all know Unlucky P. Larson, as I call him, wanted to throw a fit about that. But as I tell everybody, and those type of individuals, like Travis Cook used to be, like Lucky P. Larson, like Stephen E., they for some reason think that they run SICW. Yeah. So after a few minutes, I had to explain the facts of life to Lucky P. Larson, and that match was going to take place that night. Was going to be Flash Flanagan and Bob Orton against the LA Hustlers. Now, for those of you who were there, know the outcome of that. The LA Hustlers, in a unscrupulous way, became the titles. But August 12th, I said, okay, let's try to even the odds here a little bit. So you and Bobby D are going to tag up for those titles against the LA Hustlers. Now, how will that be if you and Bobby D pull that off? And not only are you the SICW Classic champion, but you're one half of the SICW Tag Team champions.
So, being my brother-in-law, we always had a dream of being a tag team. He went his way, I went my way. A lot of people don't even know this. When I got into wrestling, I was wrestling a few years, and then I got hurt. So I actually left the business and went into the football field. And it was Bobby D who actually dragged me back because he wanted to become a wrestler. And so he dragged me back into the circuit. And so if it wasn't for Bobby D, I wouldn't be the Classic champion. And we've never had tag straps between the both of us together. I've had it with Gary Jackson, I've had it with my old partner Waco, but I've never had it with my brother-in-law. And so we talked about this. This would be a family highlight. The brother-in-laws being the tag champions. I was a tag champion with Gary. We held those belts. Some unlucky situations happened, and it seems like they capitalize on every small little detail. But because that's how they got the belts off of me and Gary. However, their very next match was against Bob Orton and Tony Atlas, and they lost it. So that kind of tells me that they can't keep the tag straps. They don't know how to keep the tag straps. Yes, they can cheat to earn them, but they can't cheat every time. Eventually they're going to get caught. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened to them when they went against Tony Atlas and Bob. And so me and Bobby D are going to focus on Lucky P. Larson. We're going to focus on the individuals of the LA Hustlers. I'm sure if they get in trouble, Kowalski or someone else is going to come out there. So there's two of us, so one of us can always look over the shoulder and see if there's any interruptions. But we're going to focus on winning these tag straps.
Well, I think what is ironic there, they won those titles the other night, and within the next day, they're posting on social media that they're on this cruise and showing pictures of them. So that tells me right there they're not really focused, as you just said. They're focused on, hey, we're the tag titles now for SICW. We're going to go out and take a cruise. We'll come back on August the 12th and we'll go against them two guys and we'll beat them. But I think they may be underestimating the Big Texan and Bobby D.
So they're going on a cruise to celebrate. So they're going to be gone for 2 weeks. Well, you can't really train on a boat. There is no wrestling ring on this boat that they're on. Where me and Bobby every week, regardless of what level we are or what belts we're holding, we're still in the ring every week practicing. You always learn something new. You always learn how to put a hold differently on a person. But you actually have to show up to practice and learn it. So we got an advantage because they're off celebrating somewhere and not practicing, not learning their craft. And me and Bobby are here every week, 3-4 times a week, practicing to get better. And we've all had different fights with the LA Hustlers. So now it's just us coming together and moving forward and going after these belts.
So one last thing before we wrap up the Promoter's Corner this week. August the 12th, when you and Bobby D team up to go against the LA Hustlers. If you're victorious, how would that be with WWE legend Tito Santana in the house?
This year has just been incredible for SICW. Herb, you're bringing in special people left and right. And to have another icon like Tito Santana there to help us celebrate. Because I tell you, at that Fan Fest, when I won this, there was some celebration. And I ain't gonna throw any people under the bus, but you know who you are to help me celebrate. And I'm sure Tito Santana will help me celebrate, or help me and Bobby celebrate winning the tag straps.
Well, and the way you find out about that is join us on Saturday night, August the 12th at the Belle Claire Fairgrounds. Special start time that night will be at 5 p.m. with a meet and greet with Tito Santana and some of the other local SICW locker room. So you want to get your tickets early. You can call 618-286-4848 to get that, or go to SICW.org and come out and meet Tito Santana, and then watch another great night of professional wrestling, just like your grandparents, just like your parents talked about back in the days of wrestling at the Chase. That's what we're all about here at SICW. We're continuing that legacy that was built, and as I tell everybody all the time, we're not changing anything. We're just building on the foundation that those legends left for us to build on. And I tell the guys in the locker room all the time, go out there, be safe, give the fans their money's worth, and ride the horse while it's still going. Because history has said, wrestling, it's like a roller coaster. it's up there right now. You know, all the promotions are doing good, and I'm happy for all the promotions that are out there doing it. I still say it's a thing called oversaturation. That's why some organizations don't draw as well as others, but that's just the nature of the beast. That's got to do with that three-letter word again called ego. And so that's enough for this week from the Promoters Corner. Like I said, we like to try to bring you some of the classic matches, but I couldn't resist tonight when the Texan said, "Hey, I'm available." I said, "Well, let's go on and just do a little talking and let our great fans at SICW hear a little bit more about the Big Texan." So thank you for joining us tonight. Now let's get back to the action.
Wrestling fans, it has been announced that WWE legend Tito Santana will be making his return to SICW Saturday, August 12th, 2023 at the Belclair Fairgrounds. Don't miss your opportunity to see this great legend as he returns to SICW. Meet Tito Santana on Saturday, August 12th. Wrestling fans, you looking for the best in daily lunch specials and great menu food items? Look no further than Layla's Roadhouse, 440 Falling Springs Road in Cahokia Heights, Illinois. That's right, a family sit-down dining and always great specials. Also has the best pizza in the area. Wrestling fans, you've heard from our promoter and you've heard from the Big Texan. Now let's look at some action from back at the Belclair Fairgrounds this past month when the Big Texan battled Kowalski.
Have expired. 5 minutes down. competition. However, still your classic wrestling champion is the Big Texan.
Wrestling fans, there's nothing better than barbecue and wrestling. When you're hungry, stop by Mr. Barbecue with 2 locations to serve you in Columbia and Waterloo, Illinois. Great barbecue, cold beverages, and SICW wrestling. Wrestling fans, SICW Wrestling has been providing fundraising opportunities for several decades for local communities and nonprofit organizations. If your community or organization is in need of a great fundraising opportunity, SICW Professional Wrestling is the way to go. For more information or to schedule an event, call 618-286-4848 or 618-719-1034. We'll bring the matches to you. Wrestling fans, take a look now at this past month at the Belclair Fairgrounds when Gary Jackson suffered a brutal attack from Attila.
5 minutes have expired. 5 minutes. gentlemen, at 7 minutes and 16 seconds, Attila was disqualified for using the mist. Therefore, your winner via disqualification is the Night Train, Gary Jackson. He took that mist right in the face. Do we got a towel? Can somebody bring a towel out of here? If anybody can hear me back there, can we get a towel? Erica's got towel. Thanks, Eric.
Wrestling fans, for all your massage needs, visit the Restorative Massage Center located inside the Sheer Techniques Salon in Troy, Illinois. Masseuse Shauna has been a licensed massage therapist for over 10 years, and she customizes each massage to meet the needs of her clients, performing Swedish deep tissue and trigger point therapy. For all your massage needs, contact Shauna with the Restorative Massage Center. Wrestling fans, thank you for joining us for another great Sunday night episode of SICW All-Star Wrestling. We will see you next Sunday night at 8 p.m.